Hi, and welcome to Michigan Matters. Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder ran for office as one tough nerd. Today, he's getting back in the saddle of a tech company as CEO of a cybersecurity company he just launched. He's here to talk about it. But first, we're kicking things off with three high-powered African-American executives working to raise the bar on improving diversity, equity, and inclusion in Metro Detroit. It's a show checking in with the former governor and hearing from three high-powered leaders about improving our region. Let's get started.
From CBS Detroit, this is Michigan Matters with Carol Cain. Michigan Matters is brought to you in part by PNC Bank.
And we are so pleased to welcome Mike Bickers, who is the PNC Regional President for Detroit and Southeast Michigan, Gina Coleman, who's the Chief Diversity Officer there, and Marsha Lynn O'Neill, who is the National Sales Executive for Minority Business. Good morning, folks. It's so great to have you here.
Good morning.
Well, we're going to talk about, you've got a couple of promotions here, but Mike, I have to ask you, you and I were together down at the auto show, which recently took place.
Yeah.
And you were there and you were talking with Mike from the COO of Stellantis, and curious, what did you think of the auto show?
You know, I'm an auto nut, as
Yeah.
you know, and most people that know me know. So I truly enjoyed it. Was it different? Yeah. But I think we need to focus on the fact that it's back. It's in a great venue. People were excited about it. The product was great. And yeah, I did get a chance to spend some time with Mark over at Stellantis, which was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. And it really, after 3 years not having it, it's just great to have it back. But let's talk a little bit here about PNC, which you run here in Detroit and Southeast Michigan. How big is PNC's imprint here in our region?
So we have about 115 branches in Southeast Michigan and over 900 employees, offices kind of spread throughout, and just an excited team trying to serve the community.
And Gina, congratulations to you. You were just named Chief Diversity Officer for all of PNC.
Yes.
How many states is that? And as Diversity Officer, what's your mission?
So we have 54 markets in total at PNC, and now we are coast to coast. Our mission is really, we believe that the highest performing teams are diverse, and the most productive and engaging workplaces are inclusive. And so there's a vast body of research through the decades that prove this out, that companies perform better who are doing great work in this space.
And Marsha Lynn, your position was created, is a brand new position, in fact, and I know the company just launched its Minority Business Development Group. So tell us, what is its mission?
Yeah, so this is a dedicated team of bankers coast to coast throughout our footprint within our small business banking division. And what we're looking to do is really have an intentional focus on moving the needle on minority-owned businesses to help them scale and sustain. We have a proven model that does that today with our business banking division, and we just want to amplify that.
And I know small business being such a huge part of our economy is where all our growth and jobs are coming from here, Mike. And I know this is something that you've been particularly focused on here in Detroit. And I guess the question to you about it is, do you think as a region we're doing enough to help encourage small business, particularly minority business?
I think we are. There's always going to be more to do, but I think when you look at, from the governor's office, I think our own state government, local governments, there's probably more attention and resource placed in that area than, well, since my career began in the mid-'80s. And I think that bears itself out with the number of business startups in Michigan and Southeast Michigan in particular, and those that have managed to make it through tough times, particularly in the last couple of years.
And Gina, in your role now, you've come back to PNC, you're helping the company with this. There's been so much attention put on, diversity, equity efforts by companies all across our region, all across the country here. And I guess, sort of from your perch or where you stand, how do you think this effort is going? I know on the heels of George Floyd, what happened there, this became like a wake-up call for a lot of people. I don't know why it took so long, but a lot of people didn't really start paying attention till then. How do you think we're doing here in our region at this kind of conversation?
I think as long as the topic is been highlighted, and it has been, we've seen at the Mackinac Policy Conference, the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion is always on the docket and always being discussed. It's important. We take a regional approach to the way that we solve problems in Michigan, and in order to do that, you need all voices at the table.
Right.
And that's why the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation matters, especially in this state and then ultimately in the country.
And Marshalyn, with the position that you have now and working with business and minority businesses, how are you taking that and impacting businesses here in our region specifically?
Yeah, so specifically, so we have dedicated team of bankers. We have a banker here in the Detroit market, and it's a three-pronged approach. So it's getting out in the community, networking with the communities, building that trust, working with our nonprofits, but also creating those solid relationships with minority business customers to meet them where they are in their journey.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is just real quickly, the pandemic. How has the pandemic, we hear about small business being so hard hit during the course of this. How has it affected minority business? And are you stepping up efforts there as a result?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Nationwide, we've seen about 40% of Black-owned businesses close their doors, about 32% of Hispanic business owners closing their doors, right?
Right.
And so the effort around this to, create some parity, when you look at the demographics, 32% of the population is minority, right? But only 18% represent small business of itself. So getting parity is very important.
And I know a lot of people are talking about that and how to get rid of that gap. But we need to take a break. We'll be back with more Michigan Matters right after this.
Nothing says love like
the relationship agreement. So romantic.
The Big Bang Theory, 5 nights a week.
Weeknights at 11 on CBS Detroit.
The curse. You had stalkers, death threats
Wish I'd never won. Wouldn't wish it on anyone.
of the lottery.
I'm thinking about the escape, the rush.
Your odds of winning are about the same whether you buy a ticket or not. New Dr. Phil.
Monday at 5 on CBS Detroit.
And welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with Mike Bickers, Gina Coleman, and Marshalyn O'Neill about equity, diversity, inclusion, PNC, a bunch of other things here. And Mike, I know talking about this, the equity in banking and financial literacy, which has been a very important thing for the company. I know you have spent a lot of time too going out with your, let me get this right, mobile banking unit, or
That's
I call it
right.
It's
That's
a bank mobile in my
We'll go with that.
There we go. So I know you've been going out and doing weekends and helping to educate folks. And how has that gone?
What you learn over the years is you can't just invest in sort of like the thing.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is make certain that we've got teams and a strategy around like technology investments and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so we've got a great team that manages and runs our mobile banking unit throughout the city of Detroit, as you saw yesterday.
Yes.
Has all the capabilities of all of our branch network. It's our way to bring banking into our communities, but we do that in partnership with a whole bunch of great partners to make certain that it's executed pretty well. People enjoy it, especially once they get inside of it, to see this is actually a PNC brand.
It's an actual, a small one, but you get stuff done there.
You get stuff done there.
And Gina, in your position, since you're in charge of all these states, how on earth, you got a lot of stuff. How are you possibly going to have the conversations with every community? How do you navigate that?
I lead initiatives and strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, I rely on our infrastructure to help deliver the message. And so we focus on our workforce, and we highlight our employee business resource groups, which we have 12 unique ones. We have 116 chapters throughout the country, as well as 17,000 employees that are engaged in this work. And then we work with our regional councils, which really align with our marketplace strategy. And we work with our regional presidents, and they drive our D&I initiatives to reach employees where they live, work, and play, as well as in our business and our community investments.
And Marcia, same question for you, since this is a new job basically that you're carving out here, and are you going to be getting out in the community here to talk with folks, or what's your game plan?
Absolutely. We were just in a meeting yesterday with over 270 plus nonprofits, and so we're doing that coast to coast. We're participating in accelerator programs. We're being mentors and coaches for minority-owned businesses. But we're also doing things internally to to educate our employees internally around those disparities as well, because it's not enough to just go out in the community. We have to educate within.
And Mike, we're talking about yesterday and the mobile banking unit that was out. Is at Marygrove Conservatory. Marygrove College was shut down, was going to be dormant. Community came together, PNC, Kresge, Detroit Public Schools, Starfish, University of Michigan. It's unbelievable what's taken place there in just a few years. And so you had a gathering of nonprofits there to talk about how to do more regional collaboration. And how do you think we're doing as a community of bringing things together to tackle these important issues?
You know, from my seat, I think we're worlds ahead of where we used to be. I think you used to handle some of the panels sort of back in the day with the county executives and
no names. People,
exactly.
Regular viewers of the show know who you're talking about.
I need them as friends as well, so no names to be mentioned. But there was clear sort of and delineated differences there that I think got in the way of collaboration. I think you see a much different environment today, and sometimes you have to be forced to recognize you have issues. And I think that came out yesterday with the announcements around $4.5 billion in auto investment, which does not get done unless our leaders collaborate.
How much do you think the pandemic is going to impact? Because everything changed. It seems like we're in a period of reimagining, redoing everything. The game plan for everybody is like turned upside down. We're starting over. How much do you think the pandemic will ultimately help further these DEI efforts and other things like that? Either one of you.
Sure. Yeah, you want to?
Well, I think, you know, there's a lot of organizations, like-minded organizations, that are committed to this work. Right? And so diversity, equity, and inclusion is not something new. PNC is just like that, right? And so when we saw what happened through the pandemic, PPP, and especially that first round where you didn't see a lot of black and brown getting their fair share, we were able to quickly pivot and say, we want to do more around that. And I think you got more like-minded organizations trying to do the same thing.
And small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy, right? And we know that a lot of small businesses are developed by women and minorities, and so it's really important that we provide an infrastructure to support them.
And also having be able to understand finance. And the state, the governor signed a bill, both parties came together, had this bill to have a financial literacy course taught in high school. How much of a difference maker do you think that's going to make for young people who maybe aren't exposed to this?
Well, we have sort of evidence at PNC through our financial wellness teams, just hundreds of people across our company that are focused on that work. And what we've invested in for quality programming around financial education, it is just so key. Even today, we may have employees that don't participate in all the tools that are benefits to them that we have. It could be retirement planning and all of that. And so our own employees, we continue to educate alongside the communities we serve as well.
Jeannie, you get the last word here. How optimistic do you feel about DEI efforts in our region looking out over the next year or two?
As long as it stays front and center, I'm optimistic. I think we have the skill, we just need the will to get it done.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. Enjoyed the conversation. Congrats on the jobs and all that you're doing to help with the community here. So appreciate you being here. And keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters right after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're now joined by former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who was known as one tough nerd when he ran for office, who's looking to make a splash in technology again with a new cybersecurity company. Good morning and welcome, Governor.
It's great to be with you again, Carol. It's been a while. So
I was going to say, it's been, I haven't seen you. Gosh, it's been a while. So before we dive in on the business side, I know on your family front, your family's growing by leaps and bounds here, right? You got a new granddaughter?
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Hayden will be 2 in November, and she's just wonderful. So Sue and I both enjoy spending time with her and hanging out. And she's just a treat. And I like to supply her with donuts, so I get in trouble sometimes because I like to give her a treat.
Makes you get out there and have to run off those calories there. And the other thing you did, which is kind of unusual, is you adopted your 30-year-old son, Zach. So give us the background on that. How did that happen?
Yeah, Zach's been our son for years, but not legally. I always said he was our child by choice. He had a challenging life, and he ended up spending time with us, living with us, being part of our family for a long time. And finally, we came to the point and figured out, why don't we just adopt them? Because no one thinks about that.
Yeah.
So legally, Zach Snyder now, and I'm very proud to have him because he's a wonderful young man that's got a bright future and doing good stuff. Yeah. And we're just happy to be part of his life.
Well, I don't know what the stats are on adopting someone at age 30, but I'm going to imagine not that many. So you're trendsetter on that.
Well, I remind the other kids, I said, we used to call Zach our child by choice. Yeah. And I meant it both ways. We got to choose him, but he got to choose us. Right. The other kids didn't have an option. So I think it's really cool.
Well, the other thing you've been busy doing is you've launched a new cybersecurity company called Sensei. And so what is its mission and where'd the name come from?
Yeah, Sensei stands for Sensible Cyber, and it's a compelling need. That's what got me excited about doing this, is small organizations don't have people to help them with cybersecurity. They have some limited resources, and they have some very good IT people that are outsourced people that can come in and do things. But we're 100% focused on cybersecurity for all those organizations that don't have sophisticated IT staff. And there are millions of them.
Yeah.
These people are going to be victims of cyber attacks without doing more.
So give us an example of cyber. We hear about big companies, suddenly they're hacked. This retailer is hacked, Amazon's hacked. For a small company, a smaller sized company, how does that manifest itself?
Well, you can see the problem, Carol, and you just said it. If these big companies are getting hacked, how difficult is it to hack a small organization? Because they don't have the resources. And one of the things to celebrate is this is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So this is the month to be talking about this. So I appreciate the opportunity to share. But what we try to do is give them a whole cyber health plan. So it's about looking at the totality of their business, because the biggest issue, the biggest threat to companies isn't technology quite often. It's the humans not understanding what to do to prevent cyber attacks.
Yeah. If there was one or two tips, I would say if you could tell somebody to avoid doing or to avoid helping you not be a victim of cybersecurity, what would it be if there's a quick one or two easy things?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. One is strong passwords. And I know that can drive you nuts sometimes, but you do want those passwords that aren't just one-word things. You want lower, uppercase, special characters, numbers in it. But a really important thing with passwords is don't reuse passwords. If you reuse the password and you have a leak of that password out through a retailer or someone else you're doing business with, they've got that password and they're going to try it on your other accounts. Mm-hmm. The other quick one I'll give you is, and a lot of people haven't done this, is turn on automatic updates for both your devices and your software. It's not hard to find. You look for software updates and you turn it on automatic. So these things will happen immediately. And you don't have to think about that because you want those things to be up to date as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. So, Governor, let's be honest. You're of an age where a lot of people would have left a job and you left as governor. You could easily have just retired and gone off golfing or sailing or whatever here. You decide to start this company, and I guess the question is why?
Well, I'm a proud nerd. So my golf game's terrible. So if you start with that premise, but beyond that, it's about helping people still.
Yeah.
I believe this is a huge opportunity for a vastly underserved market. The other part that really helped is I had a great group of co-founders, people that I've respected. I've known these folks for 10, 20 years, and they're wonderful, really bright people. And so we're doing this effort together to, one, hopefully build a successful business, but two, to really go help people that otherwise don't have someone reaching out to make a difference in their cyber health.
Yeah. Well, there's wild, wild west of technology out there going on here. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Governor Rick Snyder talking about his cybersecurity company right after this.
If you design men's underwear, you'd make them what?
Velcro.
You ain't put no Velcro on us down there. Wax yourself.
Family Feud. Weeknights at 7 and 7:30 on CBS Detroit.
Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who just launched a new cybersecurity firm, Sensei, so you started this just a couple weeks ago, right? And how many employees do you have?
Yeah, it's been a couple months, but we have 11 employees and we have 10 clients, and we're going to be adding to those client lists because we encourage small businesses, small organizations, nonprofits, governmental units that contact us if they're concerned about cyber, and to be blunt, they should be concerned.
Right. Well, and you also are dealing with Small Business Association of Michigan, SBAM, which is run by your former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley. They're one of your sponsors too. They work with you and then offer it to their constituencies or members, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. And we appreciate the partnership with the Small Business Association of Michigan. If you think about it, they're a wonderful organization, and their members were asking about cyber, and they wanted to talk to them about cyber, but they wanted some cyber expertise. So we asked if we could be their, cyber partner in this, and we are, and it's great. There's a webinar going on this week about that topic. I did a podcast earlier this week. And these are great things to do about sharing good information, educational information to their members about how to be safer.
Yeah.
And we're doing it with groups like the Michigan Association of CPAs. There's a big surprise for you, right? I'm back with my CPAs.
There you go. Well, and in fact, you ran Gateway before you were governor here. And curious, we're in the political season here. I'm not going to take a deep dive into anything here, but just curious, as someone who came out of business, who came out of technology, is that a good background to run for elected office, do you think?
Absolutely it is. Well, the other part is I think coming from the private sector is a big plus because you understand where most people are and you understand what it takes to do economic development, create a job. Because I've always told people, government is not the job creation engine. It's the private sector. Government creates the environment for free enterprise to work, to flourish, to do well.
Mm-hmm. You ran on a platform of relentless positive action, and I guess in today's environment, it's been a few years since you ran on that platform. Is that possible, do you think, in today's political climate here in Michigan and across the country?
I think it's needed now more than ever.
Is it possible to have it, though? Is it possible to have it on the heels of all the vitriol, the conversations back and forth going on?
I believe it is. And I believe people are yearning for that.
Mm-hmm.
People are tired of all this stuff.
Yeah.
They want some positive action. They want government to do things in a constructive, thoughtful way. And so I think RPA is more needed now more than ever. And I encourage people to promote that and to go out and take that approach. The last 2 or 3 years I was in office, you know this, Carol, I talked about civility in almost every talk, or the lack of civility that our country was headed towards, and it's not gotten better. And is it doing any good? It's not helping things. It's tearing us apart more. Right. I always said the greatest threat to America is us. Right. If we can't get along with ourselves, how can we maintain our status as a great country?
I'm curious.
So let's get back to RPA. Let's go.
Let's go. Speaking of politics in the season, are you supporting the Republican candidate for governor, Tudor Dixon?
Well, I'm a proud Republican, so I'm supporting lots of candidates out there. But as a practical matter, I'm primarily focused in on startups right now in terms of doing Sensi.
So you don't want to go there on the Tudor Dixon if you're supporting her specifically or not?
Well, I don't go there on most anything like that. You know that. I was very good at taking the high ground and just saying, I encourage people to get out and vote, and I'm a proud Republican, and I hope we can move forward, but let's move forward in common ground. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about Michiganders and Americans. This is the real thing we should get out in front of people. One
last thing here before we're winding down on time. In the Flint water crisis, which happened under your watch, and the lawsuits are continuing and being thrown out and what have you, how do you feel about that chapter of what happened and where it stands right now? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, what happened in Flint was terrible. And so the issue is, I think we responded well. Once we identified the crisis, we worked hard on making things better in Flint. Mm-hmm. There's still work to do. But as a practical matter, I appreciate the Supreme Court decision coming out and clarifying that things weren't done the right way by the prosecution, that wasn't the right approach. And let's get this behind us and let's go back to trying to help one another, work together instead of having people call each other names or to do negative things. Let's work on positive things together.
Last question here. Do you miss politics at all?
I miss being governor. I mean, it was a chance to help 10 million people I cared about. It was a wonderful experience. But again, it had an 8-year time life. And when I was doing those 8 years, I viewed it as I didn't waste a day because I knew I had limited time.
Yeah.
So now I'm still working for ways to help people, and Sensi is a way to do it. People need cyber help badly, and I'm ready to help them.
You're ready to step up there. Governor Snyder, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it all. Congratulations to you and the growing family and all that you're doing there, and enjoyed the conversation. We'll be talking more about cybersecurity going forward. So again, thanks again for being here.
Great to be with you, Carol. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next Sunday for a little bit more Michigan Matters.